Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live, somebody. Let's go.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Thank you guys so much for being on here, hopping on and chopping it up with me. Yes, I know that we were supposed to be on a little bit earlier, but we had some scheduling issues that we had to, of course, iron out. But we are happy to be here with you guys, or I am happy to be here with you guys to chop it up and talk about these new things that are just kind of starting to file out here. So if you guys have not gotten a chance to see some of my pop-up videos or my live last night, we're going to be covering some of those topics today in this particular live. So definitely be sure to tune in and be a part of the conversation. And so, yes, we have got a lot to talk about. So I wanted to say a big thank you to all y'all for watching the other videos and being a part of the show that we had last night, because we had quite a funny, informative, and revealing conversation last night revolving around the incident where Little Richard was separated from Johnny Depp's hand. All right. But we got more information that has come out. I just did a pop-up video. Please go and take the time to check that out as well. But we will be dabbling in a few things here and there throughout the course of this very short show, because I got my brother here coming on here shortly. He's a very busy man, and we got a lot of things to do, and he's got to go and save the world one person at a time. So without further ado, let me invite my brother, Mr. Esquire himself, Christopher Melcher, to the show. Thank you so much for being here, my brother. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I know that we have a lot to unfold, and a lot of it is kind of like the beginner's guide behind all of these unsealed documents, which we are going to be talking about and dabbling on and tapping on certain topics here throughout this. So I do appreciate you being here, Chris. I really do appreciate it. Seriously.
Yeah, well, love to be here.
Yeah, man. So anyway, before we jump into everything really, really quick, do me a favor, do me a solid, hit that like button down below, crush it, make it scream out your name. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button, okay? And please share this video, because I know that some people don't know that we're on right now. It was kind of a last minute thing. So please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button down below. We got some things to talk about, so let's get into some things, okay? Now, the thing is that a lot of us are sitting here having these conversations. A lot of us commentators are have a lot to say, because right now, Andrea Burkhart, okay, shout out to Andrea Burkhart, but without her being so persistent about getting these documents that surround around this defamation trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I don't think we would have been able to see any of this stuff. Now, this is the reason why I brought on our good friend and new family member of the show, Christopher Melcher, on, because I kind of wanted to get a better understanding of why. Why did she have to pay? Like, why did Andrea Burkhart have to spend or raise money over $7,000 just to get this 6,600 page document? Do you mind elaborate a little bit on it for those of y'all for those of us who don't know what the heck is going on? You know what I mean?
Sure. So the proceedings are public, and in most state courts in the U.S., the proceedings are public, and the court file is also a public record. But to access that record, the courts can charge, and oftentimes they do. That they're having to manage all of these court files. Some have very elaborate and really easy to use websites that you can order the files. We were lucky in this particular case that the Fairfax court had on its homepage, you go to right to the Fairfax Virginia homepage, and it's got a list of high-profile cases. You look under the Depp Heard case, and a lot of the documents are there that they're posted that you can just take for free. And that's unusual. Most cases, most courts like LA and federal, you have to pay per page to download this stuff. Now, this kind of trove of documents were just unsealed, and we're going to talk about why they were sealed. But there was this massive trove of documents that were unsealed, and were not posted up to the website for whatever reason. I don't know what the decision was there by the court. Maybe it'll be posted up later, but at the moment that they were made available to the public, you had to go down there and order a copy and pay per page. And, the court can do that.
It's interesting because I feel that a lot of it, was there a way to get any of this content before or even during this particular trial?
No. So all the documents relate to pretrial proceedings about what evidence the jury can hear and what evidence the jury cannot hear. And that's a common feature in any trial. The court is the gatekeeper of the evidence. The judge does not decide whether, in this case, defamation occurred or what the damages are. That's for the jury. The judge decides what testimony and what documents the jury can see. So it acts as a gatekeeper, not to hide the truth or to help anybody, but to establish that there's enough reliability to this testimony that it meets the rules of evidence. And that's the main function of this judge. So before this trial, there were extensive arguments by both sides where each side said, hey, I want certain evidence to get in, and the other side said no. And so that's what all this fighting was about. And then the court made a bunch of decisions. It seemed like very good decisions on what, evidence to keep out. Now, the court also sealed that. And the reason, even though, again, it's a public proceeding, publicly filed court documents, the court decided to seal this stuff because the court did not want to taint the jury. I mean, this is the extent that this judge, who's such an excellent judge, went to make sure that the evidence, that each side wanted to get in that said, no, it's out of bounds, it doesn't meet the rules of evidence, that she locked that away until after the trial was done, because had it not been locked away, it would have been, we all would have been talking about it this whole time. And there's a chance that a juror could have seen that. And that would have then hurt each side's ability to have a fair trial, because the jury, if they would have violated their oath and started checking online, would have seen the very information that the court said that the jury could not, that it wasn't reliable or relevant. So once the trial was over, there was no risk of that. So then they said, hey, make it available.
Interesting. But make it available for 50 cents a page.
Yeah, and we may see, and I don't know, again, the court process, because we did see a delay between the filing of court documents and when it would show up on the court website, because again, they're running a court system. They can't just drop everything and say like, wow, something's filed and get it all posted. So, it takes time. So will, over time, all of these documents wind up in that free section of the court's website? I don't know. But it's, again, it would be beautiful if all of our courts had records available immediately to download for free on their websites. But, it costs money to maintain all of those records and have a website and make them available for delivery. And the courts have the right to charge for that service.
Interesting. Because, obviously finding out this information during the actual trial, right, would be amazing, right? I mean, obviously it would confirm a lot of things that we've already been thinking, right? We've all been thinking the same stuff. The court documents only are confirming or tripling down confirmation on certain things that we've already felt, even during the deposition, even during, from their testimonies, etc. But one thing I found very interesting, of course, there's 6,600 pages. I understand that not every single lawyer is going to remember every single word on those pages, but there was so much information that was said or put into those documents that were brought up into the trial. And still those people were I feel like some of the lawyers really weren't using the court documents enough to push onto certain subjects, like certain subject matters. Like, for example, I just did a pop-up video just a second ago about AH's sister, Whitney, right? She talks about, she did it again. She did it again, talking about the chopping of said Little Richard, right? The incident that happened with the vodka bottle in Australia. It's confirmed in these court documents, and yet it wasn't thrown at her. They didn't throw the book at her of all these court documents. And I keep wondering why wasn't that stuff used against them? Or was there something that was holding them back from being able to use that information?
Yeah, a couple comments around that. I mean, one is that look, I mean, as a trial watcher, like many of us watched every moment of that trial, I mean, if it's easier if we're making the same decision, how we feel about this evidence based on the same information that the jurors had. That didn't happen, of course. We had more information than the jurors had because we had the benefit of all this other stuff that the judge didn't allow. And then now there's yet additional information. But a lot of that stuff, honestly, in this 6,000 pages is a bunch of lawyers, arguing with each other.
Right.
And there's some stuff that is clearly out of bounds that wouldn't have made a bit of difference in the trial. Now, to your point, as a trial lawyer, you have a sea of information to choose from, and you have to tell a story around that, and you have to decide how to manage your time properly because everyone was on the clock. So I don't like to second guess lawyers because they get to tell a story and they collect all this information and figure out, what information they're going to present and the order in which they're going to do so. And they also have to pick and choose because some stories take longer than others to tell. But to me, on reflection, I felt that there was a lot of wasted time by both sides, that they went into things that made no difference. And then they completely ignored other areas. I think for me, the Australian conviction was significant. I know there was arguments about it, but that incident was barely discussed at the trial.
Now, when you say that, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you say that, you're talking about the dog situation.
Yeah.
Or you mean okay.
Yeah.
Just so I'm clear.
Yeah, I mean, they're in 2015, AH had and Johnny were on a plane together, and they arrived in Australia on April 21, 2015, with their dogs, and she signed a form declaring to the Australians that there were no pets aboard, and that's a serious violation of Australians' biosecurity rules, and kind of threatens their whole ecosystem by bringing in pets that haven't been cleared. And so she was charged and pled guilty to presentation of a false document to a government official. And then they even fought about that. There's an audio tape where Amber had fought with or argued with Johnny about that. So it was relevant, I think, to the whole story. It impacted her credibility. I mean, she lied and she admitted to lying. And then there was the subsequent issue, which we know about now, that she had presented a false story to the Australians to gain leniency, which they are now looking at to potentially file a second prosecution against her. But again, Johnny's lawyers, for whatever reason, I know they presented some information to the court and were shot down a bit about it, but they didn't make that a highlight of their case. And again, he won, so I can't, I'm not going to sit here and question a win. But there's no perfect trial, and you can always go back and second guess and say, hey, both sides could have done a tighter presentation of the evidence.
Right. It's just interesting because obviously there's thousands and thousands of pages here that I'm sure if you went through a fine tooth comb, I know that you just said a good 90% of it is just lawyers, bantering back and forth and just what's the word? I'm forgetting the word, but their banter back and forth is very
Yeah.
bad. A lot of just low blows and just talking to each other in a very demeaning kind of fashion. But outside of that, you say the Australian situation in Australia with the dogs and the fact that she committed perjury over there, and of course, violating these bio laws and all that. They should have brought that up or really drove that into this trial even more. I think that's really fascinating. I mean, because obviously the things that the media is pointing out and pulling up is very interesting as well. But before we go into that, I did want to show you guys, Andrea Burkhart's website. Of course, if you wanted to go there, for those of y'all who are following this trial, want to take a second to read 6,000 pages, help a brother out by all means. Holy God, it's almost 7,000 pages, y'all. Almost 7,000 pages. So if you guys find some information in these now unsealed documents, holla at your boy, okay? Because I'm going through it as much as I can, but dear God, there's a lot of jargon and a lot of stuff going on. So I just wanted to give credit where credit is due, of course. This is the reason why we're seeing mainstream media talk about a lot of these things. And I mean, this is just an example of what we are looking at right now as far as just, typical paperwork, right, to get ready for this particular trial. Now, before we go into some of these titles, okay, live and learn. It's like 4 Bibles, y'all. It's like four Bibles, okay? It's like reading it, Stephen King's It 7 times over, okay? Just so you know, all right? Except it's not entertaining. It's a lot of legalese, a lot of legal jargon and stuff. So it's not even entertaining. No one dies at the end, okay? So just so you guys know. But I know that there is information that was not brought in to trial during this whole thing. I know there's a lot of salacious stuff, and we're going to look at a lot of this stuff here very shortly. But what would be grounds to make a judge say, hey, no way, we're not bringing this in at all?
Sure. So mostly you're going to see the judge saying that something's not relevant. So to be admissible in evidence, whether it's testimony or a documented trial, it has to be relevant. And that means that it tends to prove or disprove one of the claims in the case. So there's some logical basis for having this information presented because it helps tell the story. Now, we see a lot of people wanting to present things in there that are completely irrelevant because they're just interesting, or maybe they dirty up the other side and make them look bad. And so the court's job is to stop that from happening and saying, look, we have a trial, we're competing claims for defamation. And so certainly the statements that are allegedly defamatory need to come in. We need to have state of mind evidence, like why was that statement made and what was the basis for making the statement and believing it was true. And then information about damages that they suffered. Now, past incidents in their lives, that really goes to their character, and it can be very misleading. So if somebody had done something bad years ago, stolen something, okay, there's a risk somebody wants that evidence in. There's a risk, though, that the jury would be confused or prejudiced by that to saying, wow, they stole something, therefore I don't like them, and I'm just going to stop listening and rule against them. That's the risk of presenting really irrelevant evidence, that the fact that somebody stole something in the past doesn't tend in reason to prove whether they defamed somebody on a particular date, time, and place. So that's the rule of the judge. And even if there is some relevance to it. You could say, well, hey, if they stole something, they're a liar, and a liar would always lie. Fine. But the judge will do a balancing test and saying, okay, I see your point. A liar once is a liar always, but I need to weigh that against the risk of it confusing the jury, inflaming the passion or prejudice of the jury, or just taking a bunch of time. Because if you wanted to go there and saying, hey, on 20 years ago, this party stole something, well, that may require bringing in witnesses, police officers, shop owner, all this stuff. And we're going to spend 2 days to figure out somebody stole something over very minimal relevance. And this is what we do before trials, and just saying like, no, we're not going there.
Okay.
This is a sideshow we don't need to have. Most of the rulings that the court made are that it's saying, hey, I understand you've given an explanation why you need to get this particular piece of evidence in against the other party, but I'm just telling you, I'm not going to allow it because it's a waste of time compared to the benefit of the evidence that you want to get in, or it's just going to confuse the jury. We got to stick to what we're doing here. It's a defamation case.
And basically, let's stay the course. Let's keep on track. All this salacious stuff is just going to be salacious stuff. It's not going to help, change people's opinions on, it's not going to sway the jury in any way. So let's just talk about, let's get down to brass tacks, right? The salacious stuff is for the birds. That could be for tabloids or for other YouTube channels, right?
Yeah.
But what's interesting is, for example, this right here. And of course, I use that as my thumbnail for today, but did Depp want to submit AH's nudes into evidence? Now, this is something that they say that, in unsealed pretrial documents, Heard's team argued to the judge that the evidence of a number of quote unquote irrelevant personal matters should be excluded from the defamation trial, while alleging Mr. Depp inappropriately seeks to introduce evidence of the following irrelevant personal matters. 1, nude pictures of Amber Heard. Amber Heard. 2, Amber Heard's sister's reality show video, these are all things we're going to be breaking down here very shortly. 3, Whitney and Amber's past romantic relationships. 4, Amber's brief stint as an exotic dancer years before she met Mr. Depp, and Mr. Depp's attempting to frivolously and maliciously suggest or imply that Miss Heard was at one time an escort. Now, now this is some meaty stuff right here. Okay, this is some meaty stuff, and wouldn't this be considered stuff that can show a little bit into, maybe not the nude, okay, obviously not the nude photos, right? But as far as there's information inside of that reality video or the reality show that Whitney was a part of that says a lot there as well. There's that shows kind of an insight into, she had bruises on her face. She basically says it was from her sister. So that shows a little bit more about AH's character. The romantic relationships, not so much, but I mean, as far as like, and it doesn't matter how you make your money as far as like, exotic dancer and all that stuff. I mean, it's whatever, but I feel like there are pieces in here, not everything, but there are pieces in here that I feel that could be used to show what kind of person AH was and how she was to JD. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
So, I mean, first of all, Johnny is probably lucky, or his lawyers would probably feel lucky, that this evidence that was objected to did not get into evidence because he won. And so what happens is, like, when you win a case, you want to protect it against a potential appeal. And we know she is appealing, and had a bunch of irrelevant or slightly relevant, but potentially, prejudicial or damaging evidence been brought in, then it just gives her more reasons to appeal. He won his case without getting any of this disputed evidence in. So, and now that the court denied it, it shows this judge was not biased against her. it said, hey, you want all that stuff out? Fine, Amber, well, let's leave it out. So that shows that the judge gave her a fair shake. And now we don't have to worry, or Johnny doesn't have to worry on appeal that somehow an appellate court is going to say, whoa, that got in. Of course, we're going to reverse this judgment now because, the jury was confused or biased against her based on this stuff. So as lawyers, we kind of, when we win, we're happy looking back that some of this evidence got kept out, because it really makes the judgment very difficult to appeal. Now, on that kind of stuff, it all depends on the micro details. Certainly, if there's a photograph of AH right after a time when she claimed she had been injured by Johnny, then that would be highly relevant to show. If it was a photograph of her much earlier or different times, it's completely irrelevant. We all have bodies, and sometimes we don't wear clothes. That doesn't prove anything.
That's
it
true.
does not prove that she lied about him in this op-ed piece.
That's true.
Whether she worked in some, thing, other job, her job history also doesn't really make any difference. Especially because if that fact is true, it's not something widely known. So, it could have gone into maybe damages. If she already had a bad reputation, it's hard to damage somebody's reputation by a false statement if they already have a horrific reputation. So, maybe that could have been the angle. But look, this is what people do to each other when they sue in court, and it's horrible. And we deal with this all the time. I mean, every case, one side wants to bring in the dirt on the other side, and coming right back at you is a bunch of dirt from your opponent. And so I've seen some media articles calling out Johnny, saying, how dare he try and get this evidence in? Well, there's a list of dirt that Amber wanted against Johnny too. So not a fine moment for either one of them. Fortunately, the judge said, hey, we're sticking to the facts and what's relevant here, so it didn't get in. But neither of them have any real good cause to argue about each other, because they both play the game. And every litigant, pretty much every litigant, everyone going to trial against each other in some acrimonious dispute like this, you can look at the file, you're going to see the same thing.
Interesting. So what you're trying to say is like, hey, they wanted to play dirty. One played dirty, the other played dirty as well. If someone went low, they said, hey, you want to see how low I can go? Just watch me. And I feel like that is an example here in just this article alone, right? Just showing that, hey, he's like, hey, if you're trying to dismantle my character, destroy my career, destroy my name, then hey, let me show the truth about who you are and what you've done and all that. So I'm going to throw everything and the kitchen sink at this situation because I want to walk out victorious, and I'm tired of being quiet. Right. And I think that's, just to echo what you just said, it just seems like that's the thing here. Because I mean, even so, the piece right here on the bottom of this section right here, where he was attempting to frivolously and maliciously suggest or imply that she was an escort, says quite a bit about if that is, of course, if that's in the documents, right? That shows how desperately he was trying to show what kind of person AH really was, or really is, right? And especially all this other stuff. But yes, that does not matter about, according to when she was in this relationship with him, from the moment that they were in the relationship to the moment that the relationship ended, that's the thing though, unless she was an escort or she was stripping on the poles in their relationship behind his back or something like that, then I can see that being, relevant information, right? Maybe not the photos, but just the information alone, right?
Well, here's the thing. It's like we have rules of evidence, and if any of us ever faced being a defendant in a case, okay, and this is always the test, it's the golden rule here.
Yeah.
And, it's like, if you were subject to a court case, would you want to be judged on what we call character evidence? Or would you want to be judged on what happened that date, time, and place? If you're being sued for something And it's like, hey, I either did this or didn't. If I did, I'm accountable for it. But don't bring up what I did 10 years, 20 years earlier that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And so that's why in law we've gotten away mostly from what we call character evidence. We don't convict people. We don't make them pay money. We don't make them lose their kids. We don't take their kids away from them based on what we perceive about their character. It's like we judge people on their conduct. And so that's what we're seeing here. And again, it's, it's easy if we don't like somebody, we put aside all those thoughts and say, oh yeah, I can't, we're excited. This we call evidence and that everyone should know about this. But again, it's because it confirms a belief that we already have about somebody. But in court, we have to be careful about that stuff. Otherwise people can be wrongly convicted, or, again, what I'm doing in family, get their kids taken away from them based on some judge or jury being confused that just because somebody did something that we disagree with a long time ago, it all of a sudden means that I'm losing a right.
No, and I see your point. Obviously, I mean, just looking on that side of the fence, right? Of course, you would want to do everything you can to be like, hey, let's just talk about the facts. I mean, what I did in my past has nothing to do with what does not change what's going on in the present situation or what I'm being tried for. So I do see your point there for sure. It's just interesting the information that's starting to unfold here. Of course, within the 10% of salacious stuff that's in this $6,000 plus page unsealed documents like this right here too. Apparently this has to do with on Depp's side as well, but he tried, and of course this is coming from another, I feel a more team heard media site, let's just say that, in my personal opinion. But this is saying that he tried to use the unaliving of her friend. Now, we already know the story about her getting into a car accident and this friend of hers passing away. She does mention about why she went out to LA in the first place after losing said friend, and all that. But of course, in a deposition, according to this article, a deposition from her sister, Whitney, that was dated in February 3rd, 2022, is included among the newly unsealed court documents. During the interview, Depp's attorneys asked a series of questions about, quote unquote, Logan, a friend of hers who passed away in a car accident as a teenager, which had a profound impact on her, according to Henriquez Whitney, okay, that left her devastated. So Depp's attorneys first asked if Heard and Logan were romantically involved or ever fought, to which Henriquez replied no. They then attempted to insinuate that Heard told Henriquez she was with Logan the day he died, or was driving the car he died in, to which Enriquez said that did not happen. Still, Depp's attorneys continued to press Enriquez, asking whether her driver's license, Heard's driver's license, was being suspended, had anything to do with the accident in which Logan died, to which she, of course, Whitney replied it had nothing to do with that. She further testified that Amber had never hit, slapped, or thrown anything at her, adding, I never said I was subjected to any violence because of AH. Now, the thing is this information about this particular past, right? Whether she was involved in this accident, if she was behind the car or if she was not behind the car, behind the wheel of the car, or if she was behind the wheel of the car, they still were also trying to put this information out here, trying to basically, I guess, throw AH under the bus to make it seem more. But that information also was not taken and put into this trial as well. This would still be irrelevant as well.
Well, This one I think could be in the zone because, first of all, these questions that were asked, that they're talking about a deposition, is well before the court ruled that any evidence of the accident is inadmissible. So they didn't violate that order. That order came well beyond. So to the extent that the article is insinuating otherwise, it's incorrect. And so when you're preparing for trial, you have broad rights of what we call discovery. And so we can ask a whole bunch of questions because we don't know all the facts, and we can test a lot of things and seeing like, okay, well, maybe I'm right about something here and we're going to try and present it at trial, or nah, it doesn't seem relevant and I'm going to leave it alone. We have the right to ask questions of witnesses and get documents and do that analysis. And then eventually a court rules as it did. So now the reason why I'm not as bothered by this line of questioning or thinking is that Amber Heard placed her mental state in evidence. And this is going to come up on another later point I want to make. But she claimed that Johnny, through his attorney, Adam, had made a false statement about her that caused her to lose income, and also to kind of disturb her emotional peace, made her really upset, caused her what we call in the law emotional distress. So by making that claim, she put her mental state at issue. And then if being sued for that, well, then Johnny has a right to saying, well, were you really upset about this article that you read? Or were you still upset about this other stuff that you've gone through in your past? It's a fair inquiry. It's not like if you're in an auto accident and you got a broken leg, or we know like, okay, yeah, you broke that leg because you got in a car accident. But when you claim emotional distress damages, it's like, well, I'm still upset. When I was a kid, my brother ate this taco. It was like, that was supposed to be for me, and he ate the taco. I'm
Right.
literally still, I was like 7 years old. I'm still upset about that. I'm hanging on to it. And so like, if you start going into like psychic injury, it's like, well, you got to like explore all this stuff. And so, so she potentially made any psychological distress that she suffered in her life, certainly a relevant thing of inquiry to saying like, hey, are you really upset at this point in your life because of some article that you read about an Adam Waldman comment? Or are you upset about the loss of this friend? I mean, that's a legitimate question.
Yeah. It is. I agree. And you're right. What you just said a second ago, the only reason why they started to delve more into her psyche, into where she is mentally and everything, and how she was diagnosed by Dr. Curry with, borderline personality disorder, the histrionic personality disorder, was only because of her opening her mouth and saying all these things. If she had not said anything, then maybe that part would not have been added into the trial to begin with, right? But yeah, even when it comes to that particular situation of the car, her friend, quote unquote, Logan, it would have been a very interesting piece of information to add into this trial, because it would show a little bit more. Yeah, you're right. Into who we're dealing with.
Yeah. And to me, I mean, again, you got to make judgment calls when you're a trial lawyer, and like, where do you go with that? Because if they would have been allowed to go into that incident, it could have created sympathy. You don't know, like when you put evidence out there, like how it's going to be spun or interpreted. Some people might say, oh, look what, she caused, the demise of Logan, and like hold that against her. Or people could say like, wow, kind of humanize her now. And we see like, I could see where she would be really upset because I couldn't imagine going through something like that myself. And all of a sudden now the evidence that you put in that you thought was going to be like, wow, I got her now, is actually creating sympathy in the eyes of the jury. So these are things that we obsess about, or good lawyer obsess about, and saying like, how can this evidence that I think is going to benefit me actually be used against me? And so again, then it's also a lesson in stick to your case. The case is about a false statement, really, and let's let's keep in the zone there.
Right.
This is pretty far afield.
Actually, two different questions, and they're both like on two totally different subjects. So sorry for my ADHD, but it's in full effect right now. All right, but let me ask you this: we just talked about this a second ago about the scantily clad photos. Let's just use that for an example. Okay, now there's another article out here that's calling it this, which I want to show you guys this really quick. They're calling it revenge P word. Okay, corn. Okay, just switch the C out with a P and you got yourself the word. Okay, now they're saying that he was trying to submit some revenge images. Okay, now I have to ask you, and because I know this is a little bit of a left turn, but it's still in regards to the nude photos. Okay, the scantily clad photos, and my question is, could she sue him for that? I mean, obviously it wasn't to the public, but could she retaliate in any type of way for putting out that kind of information?
No, so there is a litigation privilege, it's called, and most states observe this, that when you're suing each other, statements that are made in the course of those proceedings are protected, meaning that you cannot be sued for libel or defamation for things that you say about each other in the court proceedings. Otherwise, we would have endless court proceedings, right? I mean, every case would then start a new case about, I can't believe what you tried to do to me or say to me in that other court case that we just finished. So it's whatever you say about each other is fair game. There can be sanctions for violation of rules, but here it's like, hey, he's got some photos. He thinks that they're somehow relevant to his case. He can say, this is relevant, judge, and I want it admitted, or she can come in and say, no, it's not. So that's not going to lead to any liability.
Interesting indeed, because I would be worried about putting that kind of information out there, or those kinds of photos and all that. And God knows what those photos are. I'm sure it's the only information, or the only people who have actually laid their eyes on it are Johnny and maybe his team and maybe the judge, from seeing that kind of footage. But it is kind of revealing that kind of information is out here. But real quick, this is the one question I had, and I mean, of course, I've asked a little bit about this earlier, and I, of course, I want to get to this other article that you sent me as well, because I wanted to show that really quick. But one of the things, I just did a pop-up video about this. Guys, please go and check out my pop-up video. I just put it out. Has to do with everything about this Whitney Henriquez speaking about this, the separation of the tip of his finger from his body. But one thing I wanted to ask, okay, in these unsealed documents, and I know we tapped on it earlier, but I need to say it again for everybody in the nosebleed seats, okay? She, in these documents, says, oh man, she did it. She just did this thing to Johnny's finger with a vodka bottle. I need to call somebody. And she runs off, right? Now, the question that I see a lot of people asking in the comments here as well is, Indy Charmer just asked, why isn't she charged with perjury? Why isn't Whitney being charged with perjury? Why isn't AH being charged with perjury? Why aren't any of those people, any of those two at least, getting slapped with something? Because we have it all on paper. It's all been submitted. There are audio files. We hear these things admitting to doing said things to JD, right? And then many other things as well. Why haven't they caught a case yet in perjury?
Well, so there's rarely a perjury prosecution brought as a result of a court case. So I wouldn't get your hopes up that that's ever going to happen. And it's a case about a case, and we just don't see it. And one reason is it's very difficult to prove. So perjury is a knowingly false statement. So it's not enough to show that testimony was given that's inaccurate. It has to have been done knowingly, intent to deceive. So that's a very hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, in that particular situation, it was the boss, Jennifer Howell, who had testified at her deposition that she had heard the sister Whitney make a statement after getting off the phone with Amber. Now, Whitney, can just say, no, that didn't happen. And it's now a she said dispute that unless we had, recording of the incident, we would not know for sure what happened because one person is obviously either lying or describing something inaccurately. And there was an opportunity to get around the hearsay issue by confronting Whitney with that at the trial, but that was not done. And so to set that up, they would have needed to ask Whitney, did you make this statement to Jennifer Howell, yes or no? And if Whitney was confronted with that fact and denied it, then they could bring in Jennifer Howell to say, hey, this is what I heard. But all was played was a 2-minute segment from Jennifer Howell's deposition. There was no confrontation of Whitney on the witness stand about statements that she made to Jennifer Howell for whatever reason. So that went nowhere.
It seems weird to me that they wouldn't say that Team Depp didn't dive into that. Like really go into that piece and say, well, and like I said earlier, I get it. It's 6,600 pages worth of just words, right? You're not going to remember everything, but at the same time, that kind of information, I feel like it would be like, I feel like they would have just ride in on her, just being like, hey, what about this? What about that? You just said this somewhere else. Can you confirm it? Can you confirm or deny? Right?
Yeah. And I was all over this because not for this little factoid, it was the stair incident, because Jennifer Howell did a declaration saying that Whitney had described the stair incident as, being a fight between Amber and Whitney. And that was inconsistent with the trial testimony. So when they brought in Jennifer Howell's deposition, I figured, okay, here we're going to see now this exposed, but no question was asked of Whitney on her live testimony at trial. Did you tell Jennifer Howell that this was a fight between you and Amber? It wasn't a fight between Amber and Johnny that Whitney intervened in. It was completely inconsistent. She was never confronted with that inconsistent statement that she made to Jennifer Howell. And because she was not confronted with that under the rules of evidence in Virginia, she could not, Jennifer Howell could not testify as to the statement that Whitney made. So whatever reason, they didn't go there. Like I say, it didn't matter because Johnny won anyway. So no
True.
point in, obsessing over the stuff, but
right.
Yeah, they didn't go there.
No, and you got a point there for sure. Johnny Depp still walked away with the win. So it does. I guess it's irrelevant at this point, right? Real quick, Leela, thank you so much for the 10. Enough. Leave JD alone. She is foul. If tomorrow JD will tell, I want you back, she won't think twice to say yes. You ain't wrong. Of course, she is. Yeah. The desperation is real. Okay, so one last thing. Obviously, because I know you got to get going here very shortly, and I appreciate you blessing us with your time. Now, one of the things that I found very, very interesting that I've been seeing nonstop, okay, all over the social medias and all that, especially Twitter, is this whole thing of, Team Depp or Depp supporters have been out here trying to get this information, the unsealed documents, only for it to blow up in their face. I'm curious as to what you think, how this is going. Do you think this is really blowing up in Team Depp supporters' faces or no?
No. I mean, it's like, obviously this is the stuff we all wanted to see, because it's like, we know as lawyers, these things called motions in limine, this is where all the dirt is. This is the stuff like, judge, don't let this evidence in. So obviously this is of high interest to us to see that. And, ultimately it's not really moving the needle much for me either way. And I think that there's been way too much attention on it, on some of these things, and even misinterpretation of things. And ultimately, the only thing that matters is that both parties had a fair trial. As we can see, all this extraneous stuff was not allowed in, and now we have these 7 jurors unanimously came to a verdict. and found that both sides had defamed each other. And to me, it was a fair process run by a great judge who didn't allow any evidence in that didn't belong here. And we had jurors who did their job. And that's what should be reported on. But here we're seeing all the second guessing about that somehow was not a fair trial. Like they're completely ignoring the process that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely got a point. I wanted to show this piece here that you sent to me. This is from Newsweek, from Newsweek. But at the same time, Depp swore in declaration that Amber Heard never caused him harm, quote unquote, damning. Do you mind elaborating a little bit? Because I know this is what you sent me, and I know there's a lot of people trying to finesse, even mainstream still trying to finesse on behalf of Team AH. Please continue.
Yeah, Newsweek has been bothering me lately because if you follow it and it's in my feed, they're most of their stories are originated from a tweet. So it's like they take a tweet and they make a story about it, and then oftentimes they get it wrong. So I had tweeted out last week that they should consider taking news out of their name because there's no news happening here. Now, in this story, it is highly misleading what they're saying in here. Depp swore in a declaration that Amber never caused him harm. Damning. That's not what happened. What happened in this case is that Johnny had sued for these defamatory statements, claiming a loss of income. He did not make a claim, even though he could have, for emotional distress. He elected not to do that. And even that doesn't mean that he didn't suffer emotional distress. All it means is that he elected not to sue her for that element of damages. He only went in for loss of income. Amber, on the other hand, went for both. She said that the Waldman statement caused her to suffer a loss of income and also harmed her emotionally. And it was because she made that claim of emotional distress is that she was forced to submit to an independent medical exam or psychological exam by Dr. Curry. And Johnny, on the other hand, was not required to submit to a psychological exam because he did not place his mental state into evidence. He didn't claim that, hey, I want compensation. I want money for the psychic harm that was caused by everything that Amber did to me. He did not make that claim. And it doesn't mean that he didn't suffer it. So this Newsweek article is being twisted to say just because he did not make a claim for psychological distress and ask for dollars for the psychological stress that he no doubt endured, therefore, what? None of this ever happened?
Right.
That is completely false reporting. He made a claim that it was a defamatory statement against him made with actual malice that caused him to suffer loss of income. And the jury said, check, check, check. Yes, that happened.
That's crazy. So in other words, they're writing off of just semantics and having some fun with just making a very broad statement on or the statement is very broad and they're just trying to expand on this statement. Welcome to the mainstream media, right?
Well, that's the thing is it's misleading. And what we're seeing is that unfortunately people in their busy lives read headlines and they often don't even read the story. And if they do read the story, they don't know enough information to understand that the story is false. And this is what a lot of people, PR people, bank on, is that they're going to read the headline. Somebody's accused of doing something. And all of a sudden now everyone runs with it. And it's like, this happened. And it's extremely damaging to the individual that they're talking about, but also to the reputation of the media itself. And one of the things that I've loved, because I do this as a hobby, I mean, I ain't getting paid for any of this stuff.
Right.
I love that people are engaged. I love it when people will go down to the court and say, hey, I'll spend money and get a copy of that court file, or I'll look online because I actually want to see the underlying documents. And I want to see what other people are saying about it, other legal commentators or other folks that are talking about it online, because I want to know for myself. I'm not going to trust some reporter who basically sourced their entire reporting on a tweet. I'm not going to trust that anymore. I love that. And that's why I'm doing this for free, because it's like, hey, if people want to know about court cases, I'm like an interpreter. Okay. I mean, it's just like, here's what these documents say, and actually produce copies of the documents. And once we've done it, like we unpack super complicated legal stuff right now. Once you know the rules, it's like, then you make your own decision. And that's where I'm trying to come from, is just like, hey, this law stuff is honestly not that complicated. It's got some, terminology and process and stuff like that. Let
Mhm.
me tell you what these words mean, what the process is. Here's the documents. You make your own conclusion.
Yeah, and I got to commend you for that, Christopher, because I do appreciate you, donating your time, dedicating your time to this, because there is a lot of people out here that would love to know more about law or understanding the ins and outs of these kinds of proceedings, but don't know where to start, or they just get into their defeatist attitude and they think, "Oh, I'll never understand this. I'll never learn this stuff." But having someone like yourself and all these other, of course, people out here that are actually contributing to the everyman, if you will, for them to understand these things really is admirable, and I really do appreciate you just having the time, because I'm the everyman. I'm a regular dude. I don't wax legalese every day, so understanding it from you, it means it's tremendous. Okay. And so I appreciate you putting in the time and being a part of it. So I know you have to get going, so I do appreciate you taking the time to explain some of this. I know that there's a lot more that we can dive into, which we will hopefully be able to do that later on, down the pipe here soon. But again, thank you so much for being on and just talking us through this whole thing and letting us understand a little bit more. Because that was the one thing that was burning in my mind, is why isn't any of this stuff out here, or why wasn't a lot of this thrown out onto the into the trial? And also, why aren't they getting hit with perjury? So many. Look, just real quick, Dr. Spiegel. Okay. Dr. Spiegel, the Smeagol, looking like an eagle guy, dry mouth guy, cotton mouth disease guy. Why hasn't he been brought in for any type of anything? Because I feel
Well, I
like he was committing perjury as well on the stand, just talking random crap.
Well, so it's not perjury he was committing. He was committing idiocy and a violation of his,
Yeah.
professional duties. So I would not want to be him. He was embarrassed, but he embarrassed himself worldwide.
Right.
And I'm positive there were multiple licensing complaints made against him that could very well be actionable, because as a psychologist, you do have a special role here, and you're not to diagnose somebody that you have not treated. And this could be highly misleading and damaging to the individual that you are falsely diagnosing, which is what he did. And it's also harmful to the whole profession of psychology and behavioral science, because we all kind of think that they're idiots now because of what we saw this individual do. Fortunately, we had Dr. Curry, who stayed in her lane, and she had a basis to talk about Amber's mental health, because she did an extensive evaluation and psychological testing of her. So, like I say, people get their due. And he I'm sure has suffered tremendously, and rightfully, based on what he did.
I keep wondering if what he did is grounds for getting disbarred, because I mean, it just seemed like
Yep.
just
Well, and I've had that in a case, a divorce case, that a child custody case that I handled years ago, where a psychologist did something similar to that, and a licensing complaint was made, and she did lose her license. So that has happened, and there needs to be accountability. I mean, the only reason why we as lawyers or accountants, psychologists have the right to call ourselves professionals is because we have standards that if we do not adhere to, that we are held accountable for. That's at least what we say. That's how we can call ourselves professionals. And for the profession to have any integrity, the licensing authorities need to act on that and do something about it. Otherwise, there are no standards and we're not professionals.
Yeah, man. Oh my God. They need to do something with that and with the quickness. Christopher, I want to say again, thank you so much for being on. Really, really quick, everybody. Please go and follow him. If you're on Twitter, do yourself a favor. Please go and follow this man. Follow Christopher Melcher it's at CA_divorce. Again, it is at CA_divorce on Twitter. Please go follow this man. Obviously, this man is heavily knowledgeable on all these things. You will be seeing a lot more of his face on this show. It is always a blessing having you on, my brother. Thank you so much for being on. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
All right, man. Bye. So guys, I want to say a big thank you to all y'all for being on and talking about this. This is, like I said, there's so much information that has been brought out. We are going to be talking a lot more about this in later videos and later lives as well. But I just wanted to kind of tap into this right now and just kind of get my feet, just to test the waters. And just kind of get my feet wet in this particular chapter, this new chapter of all these unsealed documents and all that. I know more and more information, more and more salacious topics are being brought up. More titles in mainstream media starting to leak out, starting to get thrown out here on all these blog sites and whatnot, and even on other commentators' YouTube channels as well. I am doing everything I can to get as much information to you guys, but I want to give you factual information, not just crap. So I am doing everything I can to find out more information about that. I might be on a little bit later on this evening. It'll be a conversation about something that has nothing to do with this topic here. It's going to be a little bit of a totally different story, but it's a mystery. And the reason why I say this is because, it is a mystery. And the question that's sparking off right now is if there was foul play revolving around this particular story. I'm not going to tell you guys anything. You guys are just going to have to tune in later on tonight when I talk about it, okay? It will be alive. So please be sure to hop on and be a part of the conversation, because it's a mysterious and unfortunate story. And people need to get caught up to this on this story and know what the hell is going on. Because even the story itself is I still can't even believe it. Okay. So please do me a favor. I appreciate all y'all for being so calm and so patient with us today. I know we didn't start at the time that we were supposed to, but because of conflicting situations, we had to push our live to just now. But I do appreciate all y'all for being here, chopping it up with me, having the conversation. There will be more coming up very soon. So do me a favor, okay? Before you head off, hit that like button down below, crush it, make it scream out your name. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button as well. Please, 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 and thank you. And hey, if you haven't done it yet, I have a new episode or a new pop-up video that I just did before this live, okay? So please go check it out. It has to do with Whitney and AH and the finger incident. Please go check it out. Some more revealing information from those unsealed documents just dropped. We talked about it. I tapped on it a little bit last night. Of course, I'm talking about it in more depth in this pop-up video that just dropped a little bit ago, about an hour or two ago. So please go check it out. I'd really, really appreciate it. Okay. Anyway, it is time to get going. Have a great rest of your day, guys. And hopefully I'll see you guys this evening. All right. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys most likely this evening. All right, guys. Stay blessed out there. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.